Hey knitters, Tanya here, ready to dive into clue number 2 of our mystery knit along? If you haven't gotten your clue yet, then you can find a link for it down below this video. Last week, we started by casting on for our asymmetrical triangle shawl. Yes, we're knitting a shawl with color number 1. We worked some garter stitch, got the shaping going, added some I-cord edges. We introduced color number 2 with some garter stitch stripes and some daisy chains. Now with this clue, we are going to introduce color number 3. We've got some stockinette stitch to work, some more stripes, and we're going to start with some slip stitch knitting using all 3 colors. There's a lot to talk about, a fairly large section for this clue number 2. So let's go to the overhead and look at what you'll be doing this week. So here's how things are looking at this point. We finished our daisy chains and our last few stripes. Now it is time to break our dark contrast color. We're not going to use that right now. Well, we're going to use it in a little bit, but we're going to basically use this color and we're going to introduce our third color, our pop of color. So we have our 2 neutrals that are high contrast, and then we add in our pop. That's coming up right in this section. So in this section, we're going to be switching to some stockinette and some garter ridges. The pattern is basically the same. Our right side rows are exactly the same. We're going to work our edge stitches at our increase, work to the end, decrease, and slip those last 3 stitches. Then, of course, because it's stockinette, on the wrong side rows, we're going to purl across. So let me demonstrate that for you. I'm going to work my right side row, and then I'll meet you back here in a second to show you how to do the wrong side row. Finishing up my right side row, and for the wrong side rows, or at least for this wrong side row, we are going to introduce some stockinette stitch. So we're going to knit those first 3 stitches. Remember to do it loosely for that I-cord edge. And then we're going to purl across these stitches. You're just going to purl to the end, to the last 3, and then slip them like we have been doing. And now with the yarn towards me, I'm going to slip these 3 stitches. And that is the first 2 rows of our next section. We're going to start doing stockinette. If you pull it down, you can see we've got some knit stitches under there instead of our garter ridges. So we're going to repeat this row again with the white, but in this next section, in this stockinette section, it's very important to make sure your I-cord edge is loose. It's not as crucial in the garter stitch because garter stitch is more compact than stockinette stitch. Stockinette stitch, their stitches or the rows are taller, so you really need to make sure that I-cord edge is stretchy enough to accommodate those stitches. So make sure you're working your first 3 stitches very loosely, and also that tip that I shared before of working just those 3 stitches. Knit just the 3 and slip them right back, and then you're ready to start the next right side row. In this stockinette section, I'm probably going to do that every other right side row. So every 4 rows, I'll probably do this. And one more thing, when you introduce your third color, you can carry that along just like we did in this first section with the white and the blue. We carried that white right along the back right there. Just make sure to keep that loose as you carry it along, but you can also do that with the pink when you introduce it in this section as well. The sections where it's used there's not that much space in between those rows, so you can carry it just fine. But we did break our color 1 at this point because we're not going to use it for quite a few rows. And then we'll add it in a little bit and then just break it again. We're not going to carry that color. We're just going to carry this one along with our white. So now you're all set and you're ready to work on this section. So we've made a lot of great progress on our shawl. We've got the first beginning part, and then we introduced our color 2 and those daisy chains in this large section with our garter and stockinette stripes. Now we're going to work on a slip stitch color section, and we're going to use all 3 colors for this. So our first 2 colors, our color 2 and color 3, are attached, but we're going to start with color 1, so you can join that in. And the right side rows for this pattern are just like what we've already been doing. I'm going to knit 2, work my double increase, knit to the end, work my decrease, and slip those last 3 stitches. So you don't need to see me do that again, but I'll be right back here with the wrong side row in just a second. So I'm at the end of my right side row. So let's see what a wrong side row in this section is going to look like. This is where all of the action happens, on your wrong side rows. So we start with our edge stitches. We're just going to knit these 3 very loosely for our I-cord edge. And then our pattern begins, and we have to knit 1. And then we're going to slip a stitch. We're going to slip it purlwise. That means insert as if to purl, slip the stitch, and our yarn is going to be in the back. Hold the yarn to the back of the side that's facing you. This is the wrong side of the work, but right now it's what's facing us. So we hold our yarn to the back and slip that stitch as if to purl. Then we knit a stitch, slip a stitch as if to purl with that yarn held to the back of the work. Slip, knit, slip, knit, and then continue just repeating this process until you get to the last few stitches, where you will knit a stitch and then slip those last 3 stitches. And as you're working across, try to keep an even tension. Don't try to pull this stitch tight and really bring that yarn tightly. We're creating a design on the front of our work, and we want to just keep those stitches loose, slipping, and I'm not doing anything special to the yarn. I'm just holding it there, knitting the next stitch, slipping, holding the yarn, knitting the next stitch. I'm not pulling tight. I'm not leaving a lot of yarn. I'm just trying to give it my normal tension. And the end of the row, we're going to finish with a knit 1 and then slip those last 3 stitches. And then we do a very similar thing with our next color, which would be color 2. So our white yarn, so we'll just pull that up. And we'll drape all of these right there, and that will catch them along the side while we work with our white. And you can see it forms, it's hard to see in this dark color, but it does, because we slip those stitches with the yarn held to this side of the work, we're getting these alternating purl bumps with this slipped yarn, purl bump slipped yarn. So I'm going to knit a few more of these rows. The right side rows are all exactly the same. The wrong side rows, it's basically the same. You might have another knit 1 at the edges or something like that, but the basic pattern is a knit 1 and slip 1 across the row. So you're going to continue doing that. I'm going to knit a few more rows so you can see what this is going to look like. If you don't want to see what it looks like, then stop the video now. So I've just finished 8 rows of this pattern, and you can see this is what it should start to look like. We've got these slip stitch patterning right along the front. One thing to pay attention to is on your wrong side row, when you're knitting and slipping across, you are going to be working the opposite stitch. If you knit the stitch on that previous 2 rows before, you're going to be slipping it. So these stitches sort of become a little offset, the little slip stitches, and it forms this pattern across the front. So you're just going to continue working this slip stitch pattern, following the pattern directions to finish this section. Now that's a lot to do in this section of our mystery knit along for clue number 2. We've got 2 sections to work on. Once you finish those, you're ready for clue number 3, which you'll find linked right here. I'll see you in the next video.